Hi guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. All right, everyone. Good morning. We have a special guest today, a guest that has managed to get me out of my bed and functioning before about 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is unusual. Our special guest is in the UK. She's wonderful. And it is the evening time for her right now. So that's why the strange timing. So welcome everyone to Dr. Camilla Edwards DVM CertAVP MRCVS. She graduated from vet school in Copenhagen, Denmark in 2006. She moved back to the UK and worked for a few years in mixed practice and small animal First Opinion practice before spending 8 years in emergency work where she gained her certificate in Advanced Veterinary Practice. In 2018, she set up her business, which is called First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound, FOVU, where she travels to vet clinics near Cambridge in the UK, scanning dogs and cats with ultrasound. And she's what you'd call a peripatetic vet or a traveling vet, which I think is kind of the language folks use more so in the UK for traveling vets, more than we would, the way we would say a mobile vet here is my understanding. And we'll hear a little bit more about that in just a minute. So Camilla also offers ultrasound teaching online and in person through First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound alongside reviews of ultrasound machines. So I'm super excited to have her here today to talk to us about ultrasound and being a peripatetic vet in the UK and how different that is from the US, and how we can apply the practice of ultrasound and scanning to our mobile practices. So welcome, Camilla. Yay, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Eve.
Yay. Okay, everyone, just take a pause and listen to that adorable accent. Oh my God. That's the real reason Camilla is with us today. I have a complete and utter love for all things accents. So welcome. First of all, I wanted to start out the episode with this question that I always like to ask. So when you're traveling to different vet clinics to do ultrasounds, what are you eating in the car? What's your favorite snack while you're on your way?
It's got to be chocolate, all things chocolate. So chocolate bars, but I think we have a lot more chocolate bars over here in the UK. That's my impression from when I've been in the US, that there's just a lot more choice in chocolate bars over here. So yeah, I chocolate bars. It's my favorite.
What? How? I had no idea there was a greater selection there. I'm a huge chocolate fan too. What's your favorite chocolate? Like what kind of chocolate is your like go-to?
Well, any of the sort of Cadbury's bars, or Kit Kat or Boost, or Crunchy. You probably don't know any of these brands.
I don't. I know Kit Kat. That's the only one I know about.
Okay.
I want to put in like a special order for you to send me some of those.
Yeah.
Placing my order right now. That's awesome. I think chocolate is a really great snack to have in the car because it's like a tiny bit of caffeine. It's a little bit of sugar. It's just like happiness.
It is happiness, isn't it?
Yeah, I just kind of off subject. Speaking of happiness, like my little reward for myself for waking up early this morning is I made myself a sweet potato latte that has sparkles in it. I don't know for anyone who's watching on the YouTube version of this, if you can see any of the sparkles in here. It's hard. They're pretty thin. They're pretty fine, but it's Sugar Mama Shimmer that I got in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of like sweets and special treats and stuff like that. Anyway,
you have to treat yourself. No one else is going to, so you might as well.
Exactly. So Camilla, can you tell me a little bit about how you decided to embark on the journey of becoming a mobile ultrasonographer? Tell me a little bit about your story.
So I guess the first time it crossed my mind was probably back in 2008, when I was heavily pregnant with my first child. I've got 3 girls, and I was locuming in a practice where a lovely practice where they had a visiting ultrasonographer, and I was just blown away. I thought, this is a brilliant job. Like, you just come in, see the patients, you see really interesting stuff, and then you go home and write reports, and you're not having to deal with all the drama of dealing with clients and stuff like that. So at that point, I was a new graduate, just a couple of years out. So it seemed like an impossible dream at that point. Also having kids, I thought, I'm never gonna be able to do a residency or anything like that because it's just going to be too time consuming. So at that point I thought, I'm stuck in general practice. That's what I'm going to live with. But I gradually moved into emergency and critical care. That sort of grew over here. There were some rule changes in the UK that meant that practices could contract out their out of hours care. So I moved into doing that for 8 years, and I loved that, but I kind of always wanted to be my own boss. So I looked into setting up my own clinics, but that, for one reason or another, never happened. And then I got to a stage where I actually just burnt out in work, and had to take some time off work. And really, that's where the idea of setting up a mobile peripatetic vet clinic came back to mind. And again, I was still a general practice vet, but just with now an interest in ultrasonography, and many years under my belt now. And I thought, well, maybe if I talk to lots, my old colleagues, they know I'm a good vet, they know I can do ultrasonography, maybe they'll let me in to just do that part of the job in their clinics, because a lot of them owned clinics then at that stage now. And that they did accept me, and it's been really useful for them, and it's just grown for me as word of mouth has spread. So I've can't actually take on any more clinics at the moment. So it's a great stage to be at. But it was really a dream that I didn't really know whether it would take off at all to begin with. Yeah. So that's kind of my journey to become a mobile ultrasonographer.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. And also, I think it's really interesting how common it is that most of us had to get to that point of burnout in order, like hit rock bottom to be able to test out a new idea and say, hey, I have almost nothing left.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing left to lose. So let me try this dream I've had. And it's a story I hear so often with people saying, I've had this dream and this idea for such a long time. And it took just getting smacked with the reality of practice as a veterinarian and in general practice, or first opinion practice, as you guys call it. and just realizing like you literally can't go on anymore like that, and it's time to act on the dream. So I love that.
And I'm a real believer in, you know, that if we all play to our strengths, then the whole team becomes stronger, you know, like, so if we really focus on the things, I think as a new graduate, you need to perhaps focus a bit on your weaknesses and try and make them a bit stronger. But once you're, you know, an established vet, then really, you know, play to your strengths and go in that direction. Do the stuff you enjoy, and other people enjoy other stuff. So together we can, you know, create a really good service for the patients. So yeah, I'm a great believer in that.
I love that. I think it's not, and it's play to your strengths and play to also the things you love and you enjoy. And I think that leads to sustainability too. It reminds me of my surgical residency. I talked about that in my first episode, and part of it was I thought I was going into something I loved, but I was also leaning into my weakness instead of leaning into, you know, something that was really a strength, you know. But then again, you're absolutely right that early in your career, which I was about 2 years in, I was like, let me get stronger here. Let me get stronger in this. And well, that didn't work out, but that's okay.
Yeah. And that's what I did with emergency medicine. That was terrifying to me initially, but I leaned in and I learned to love it in the end. I really did enjoy that. It was just a shame that it had to be at nighttime all the time. I just couldn't cope with it in the long term. So yeah, but I did like the fact that you can work through a case and make a real difference in just a few hours to a patient. That was really special.
It is. It really is. And I think that's why a lot of people kind of get hooked on emergency medicine too, like that sort of challenge of leaning into the things that are difficult and conquering them, and like fix the animal. Like it's really like one of the few places you can just be like, done, fixed. I fixed you.
Yeah. And it's great as a working parent, you know, if you can't work full time, then you don't need that consistency in emergency and critical care, because you can make that difference in your shift. You don't have to be there for the next shift if you've got to be home with the kids or whatever.
So true. And that's interesting. I didn't know you had 3 little ones. I had no idea. Yeah. You're amazing. That makes what you're doing even like 8 million times more amazing, because that's amazing. And that's another thing that I hear that's really common for people who go into mobile practice, that they're starting a new family, or they're pregnant, or they're in maternity leave, or they have a bunch of kids and they want to have the freedom to be a mom or a dad.
Flexibility to organize the time the way you want it.
That's right. That's right. Would you say that's happened for you? Was it what you were wanting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My main issue is I have a difficulty saying no. So yes, sometimes it does leak into time where you know I should not be working. But it's different when it's you that said yes, you know, and it's your business and it's your baby that you're growing. So yeah, it's very different to needing to stay late in a clinic every night because you can't get away on time for somebody else. It's for you, so it's really worth it.
That echoes the sentiment of so many mobile and house call vets and any really practice owner as well. It's you have made the decision, you have set the boundary. It's your decision. And I think even when we say yes, we're all, so many of us are people pleasers. in the vet community, and we all have a hard time saying no because we want to help everyone. That's our nature, right? Like that's a prerequisite of the job. And so, I mean, I relate to that so much. I also have a hard time saying no. I've gotten so much better at it over the years, but it's a totally different feeling to know that you're stretched thin or you're stretched beyond your capabilities because you did it to yourself rather than, you know, just someone else is entitled to your time and you're stuck, you know? So I so relate to that. I know so many.
I see very much myself as my present self and my future self and my past self. And so sometimes I can get very angry at my past self for saying yes to things that I should have said no to. And my present self is very angry. But it, you know, that's part of the learning curve of starting up a business. And also when you're starting a business, it's hard to know how busy you'll be at certain stages. So it does swing up and down, but I like that variety of sometimes it's super quiet and I can get on with other stuff, and sometimes it's super busy. That's nice.
Exactly. And it's so easy to be angry with ourselves about the yeses we've doled out. And I so relate to that. And it's very easy as a new business owner to not know exactly where your boundaries are yet. That's definitely a learning curve thing, and we lean into that.
And a continuous battle. Like you just have to reassess that and reevaluate what your boundaries are all the time.
Absolutely. It's definitely a work in progress. I relate to that so much. So kind of on the subject of boundaries in the UK, and you alluded to this a little bit, I understand that you have to be available 24/7 when you open a mobile practice or you open any kind of practice. Can you tell me a little about how you handle that? And I think you mentioned that the rules changed, maybe that you can sort of farm out your on-call type stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how things are a little bit different in your part of the world?
So it used to be that we used to have rules that said that it had to be a vet that owned a practice, and those changed to that you didn't need to be a vet. So obviously then that's when corporatization happened, and gradually we've moved. We've always had the requirement that a vet practice who's seeing clients needs to provide 24/7 cover, but nowadays we can contract that out. So but that does mean, because it's contracted out, you need to pay for that service. So if you were a mobile vet setting up a practice in the UK, you and seeing clients, seeing patients, and you didn't want to work after 6 o'clock in the evening, you would need to pay a practice to take your clients. Then, just because how the rules work means that's how the payment flows. So not only would they get the payment for seeing your patients, but they would need to be paid by you to see them as well. So it's quite a big barrier. So most people doing that would see their own patients out of hours and would need to be available 24/7.
So you say it out of hours. Okay, so that's out of hours.
So for my work, I'm effectively a sort of specialist locum. So I'm just supporting the practices that are already there. So although there isn't quite that same 24/7 requirement, I do answer emails and phone calls from my practices when they need me, but that's not too arduous at all. They're very respectful of my time, so I do answer emails at the weekend if I need to, but it's not a lot of work doing that. But yeah, the type of work that you're doing, you would need to be 24/7. So
crazy. And do you know, for like end of life providers, in-home euthanasia, or does that apply to them too? Do you know?
Yeah, so that's a relatively new type of business over here. So when I first set up my ultrasound business, I dabbled in a few different things because you just don't know what's going to take off. And so I did have a little service providing home euthanasias, but obviously that's slightly different because you can take on the care for that patient just for that time, and obviously a patient you euthanize is not going to need ongoing care following that. So that is slightly different. You don't need to provide 24/7 care. But I think that's been difficult over these past couple of years with the pandemic. There hasn't been very many home visits for euthanasias available in this country, certainly for the last 2 years. So I think that's starting to open up again, but it'll be interesting to see where that goes, because a lot of clients want that, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, that's really true. It is a relatively new kind of niche. I think that has kind of exploded in the last couple years here in the US. I can't tell you how many new IHE providers have kind of joined the house call and mobile vet community just in the last couple of years here. And I imagine that in the UK, that kind of trajectory is happening as well. And that I can imagine that being a very attractive business model in your part of the world because of the challenges you mentioned. And that's a really good point, that, you don't, if you have the patient once and, you don't have to, be available 24/7 after, end of life care. It's just the the logistics makes it sort of self-limiting.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm projecting that in the UK that kind of business model is going to grow. And I think it sounds like a really beautiful kind of way for people in the UK to kind of lean into this. And I imagine that's going to become more accessible between the stuff you're teaching and the stuff I'm teaching. I think that kind of sector of things is going to grow. It's got to. And I think it's going to help so many people and animals as well. Like you said, it's very in demand, very. Yeah.
It's the peaceful ending you wish for your pets, isn't it? So yeah, I think the demand is definitely there.
Totally. So shifting gears a little bit, if you haven't noticed, that's one of my favorite phrases, like my signposting, shifting gears. So I guess we are mobile. It's appropriate to shift gears. So can you talk me through, sorry, I'm very goofy this morning, I feel like.
I love it.
So can you talk me through some considerations for mobile vets who might be interested in getting an ultrasound machine?
Yeah, so one of the things I've done with my website, basically back in March 2020, when the whole world locked down, I was left homeschooling my three kids, and I couldn't and wasn't needed to go out to veterinary practices at that point. I wasn't really allowed, and vet practices didn't want me in the building to spread coronavirus. So I had to sort of take a little pivot with my business. And one thing that I'd been thinking about for a long time was, because I didn't have my own ultrasound machine at that point, I had tried a lot of ultrasound machines in different practices. So I decided that I'd set up a website and review all the ultrasound machines that I had tried. So I did that in March 2020, and I thought, well, I might approach some of these ultrasound companies and see whether they would lend me some of their ultrasound machines so I can review them. And that's just grown and grown. So I've reviewed a lot of machines now and continuing to review. So I've got a review coming out every month at the moment. So I find it really fun trying out these different machines, and it's so overwhelming. There are so many machines out there. So when you go, if you don't have any experience, in ultrasonography, it's really difficult to know where to start when it comes to buying a machine. And I feel like a lot of practices that I see in the UK, and you can tell me if it's the same in the US, you know, but end up buying a machine and not fully understanding what it can do, what it's capable of, using it to its full capacity. And sometimes even it just gets put in the corner and people are just too scared of it to actually use it properly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to combat that a little bit. Through that people are buying the machine that's right for them. So I've got all my reviews on my website, fovu.co.uk, but also yeah, really thinking about how you're using it as well. So you know, learning how to use the machine. I've set up a few courses on there are online courses, and I really take you back to basics, because a lot of the online courses out there teach with one particular machine, or you know, or assume that you have some knowledge beforehand, but I'm assuming nothing, and I will guide you through your own machine. So you know, that's the difference with my courses. I really want you to learn how to scan with your own machine. Yeah, so you can tell me, in the US, in a mobile practice, would you say most people have an ultrasound machine, or do most people not have an ultrasound machine? How is it in the US?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say in the mobile community, most people don't have an ultrasound machine. I see a lot of kind of like folks who are just getting started in the mobile vet world really stressing out about getting an ultrasound machine and making an investment of like hundreds, tens of thousands of dollars right off the bat. And I would say most mobile vets do not use an ultrasound machine. I think some of our colleagues on the Laboits, like in the big, like actual mobile clinics, they will have ultrasound, some of them.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for that, because those are some of my colleagues that I refer to here in Los Angeles, you know, just to kind of keep the continuity of care, keep a mobile vet coming to the home. I will refer to kind of mobile clinics that I know have an ultrasound to do my ultrasounds. When I'm doing my cystocentesis, I'm usually going by feel in cats and by anatomy in dogs. And I also do a lot of free catch. So interestingly, there's more nuances of interpreting free catch urinalyses, and you know, the house call vet kind of paradigm encourages you, or kind of welcomes you into that level of interpretation of free catch urinalyses, and that's very common across the board in mobile vet practice. And then I would say for the people who do have ultrasound machines, they've got the portable ones. Which I'm excited to hear your take on those. But I think I'm so excited to talk to you, because people really get stressed out about this, and they think they have to, you know, invest like right up front. And I personally don't think it's necessary, but I think once your practice is you know, up and running, and you know what you need, if it turns out you've got a lot of older patients that need to be scanned, or you don't feel comfortable doing cystocentesis without an ultrasound, then you know, it's a good choice for you.
And so I think that's right. And I think, you know, the way ultrasound is moving as well is you know, that it's becoming an extension of your clinical exam. So it, you know, like you wouldn't have a vet traveling around without a stethoscope. I think in 15, 20 years, you won't find a vet traveling without an ultrasound machine. I think they're just so useful and give so much information that it is just an extension of your clinical exam. And some of these machines, the small ones, are getting so good as well now that they really are useful, and you don't need to understand everything about ultrasonography to be able to use them or get some useful information out of them. So I think it is the way things are headed, because you're not going to have a mobile CT. X-rays trickier,
right.
And an MRI, well, that's not going to fit in the car. So yeah, ultrasound is really the way to go for mobile practices, and you can make such a difference. When I just think about one condition where you as a mobile practice can make such a difference, would be learning to measure the size of the left atrium in comparison to the aorta, because you can start your patients on pimobendan and make such a huge difference to their lives, and it's not surgical, it's not, but it's magic in my eyes, the difference that can make to your patients, and really also thinking from a business point of view, if you're supplying medication, you make a good return on your investment with that ultrasound scan as well. So I do think it's the future, and I'd encourage you all to get an ultrasound machine in mobile practice. So useful.
That's awesome. And so you touched on this a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit more on your thoughts about monetizing? If you make an investment in an ultrasound machine, how do you get a return on your investment?
Yeah, so obviously different clinics are going to have different budgets, but it's important to consider what are you going to use this ultrasound machine for? What are your skills that you have currently? How are you going to up your skills, and where do you want to take this? Do you want to end up doing cardiac scans, or do you want to just stick to cystocentesis, ultrasound guided, or somewhere in between? So it's really important to know where your goals lie as well with the ultrasound machine before you buy it, and then with that in mind, take into account in your budget the training and how much that's going to cost to
Absolutely.
get
Absolutely.
get to that level, because that is part of the cost. Also taking into account things like servicing. Will it cost something annually to service this machine? You really need to think about that. So yeah, those are some considerations. Also, I don't know what it's like in the US, but certainly some companies will allow you to lease a machine rather than buy it outright. So that's an option as well. And then consider what will your clients pay for it? What are they prepared to pay for it? How are you going to get them to see the value that you're getting from this bit of equipment? And yeah, really understanding, because there's no point getting a really, really fancy machine that does loads of stuff if your clients are not the clients that will afford that. So
exactly.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and that's really for any piece of equipment, isn't it? That you get in your mobile clinic, or in any kind of practice, really. But those are the main sort of considerations I'd think about when it comes to thinking the financial parameters.
Love it. I think I can't agree more. There's just so many things to consider in terms of your investment when you make that investment. That's one of the reasons that I like to have people hold off on that, as until you have a clientele and you have a general sense. What's the demographic? Are you seeing a lot of cardiac patients? Are you seeing old patients that need met checks? What is your clientele turning out to be? And sometimes we don't know that until we start.
Yeah.
And you get a sense of your practice and what your clients are like, what they're willing to spend. And I think at that point, then you have a little bit more information, a few more data points, and then you can start making your big decisions and map out your investment and how much you'll need to charge to get a return on investment, all of that stuff. But I love all of that. All of that is such important stuff to consider in terms of adding ultrasound to your practice. And so you're such a gem of information and knowledge and resources about all things ultrasound. I was wondering if we could get your take on kind of starting with bigger ultrasound machines that someone who's on a Laboit or, starting a mobile clinic might, or, who'd like to enhance their current mobile clinic. What are some of the ultrasound machines that you've found might work really nicely in that context?
Yeah, so some machines that I've been trying out recently have been the SIUI, SIUI machines. They're just such good value and brilliant machines. They're portable machines, but they can come with trolleys, etc. But they're brilliant. And also tried this week the ECOTs. They're also brilliant. But I don't know whether the brand names might be different in the US with some of these machines. So it can be a little bit tricky. But yeah, there's so many great machines out there. I've actually put together for you for the House Call Vet a little package of all my reviews that I've done so far on different machines. So if anyone listening to this wants to go to fovu.co.uk/vet house call, I've put together a little package for you with reviews on all the machines. I've split them up into POCUS machines, so point of care ultrasound machines, and then the next category is space saving machines. So they can do a little bit more, but they're really focused on space saving. And then a section on portable machines, so your laptop style machines. Yeah, but my favorites at the moment, they're the SIUI and the ECOT. They're really great machines.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited for what you put together for us. Yay! So we'll include that link in the show notes as well. Thank you again for putting that together for us. You're the bomb.com. That's going to be so helpful. Oh my God. And now can you kind of tell me a little bit about there's, in my understanding, two main portable small ultrasound machines that most house call vets who have ultrasound machines are using. Can you tell me about those two, your experiences, and how, if someone's trying to make a decision between these two, what are they looking for? What do they need to know?
There are actually a few out there, but the main ones that I've seen, so tell me if they're the same, is the Butterfly IQ and the Clarius.
Yeah.
And I do think they're quite different from each other, so that can help you make a decision, really. So we'll start with the Clarius, because that's kind of a typical ultrasound machine, in that it uses piezoelectric crystals, which is the main part of the probe, the fancy bit of the probe, if you like. And so it's quite a traditional type of ultrasound machine, but it involves a lot of AI. So you don't need to know all the adjustments that you would normally need to make with a bigger machine. It knows what you want when you change the depth that you're looking into the animal. So that's really handy. And I think the image quality on it is brilliant. It really, really is superb. So that's a great starting out machine. Sort of the disadvantages with it is the battery life is quite short. But they've just released a new version where you can actually use it while it's plugged in. So that's a great update that they've made. The Butterfly IQ, on the other hand, I've recently just had my hands on one of those. Is a totally different, it's a new concept really in ultrasonography. So rather than having piezoelectric crystals, it has microchips that sends out the ultrasound and receives the ultrasound. So it's a totally new system, and it's a new technology. And for that reason, because you don't have these precious crystals inside, it is incredibly robust. You know, with previous ultrasound machines, if you drop the probe, it's the end of the world. You know, you damage it, it's expensive to do. I mean, the butterfly, you can like run over it with a truck and it's still going to work. So, you know, that's a really useful thing. The difference with it is that you don't buy it outright, you have to buy a subscription, and without that subscription you don't get access to the cloud and the various different bits that you kind of need to run. So it's probably more expensive in the long run, and I'd also say that the image quality is not quite up to comparison with the Clarius. So but it depends how clumsy you are. If you're clumsy and you're likely to run over your ultrasound probe, then the butterfly is probably the way to go.
You know, that's a really interesting thing, because we're, you know, out in the field, if we're, you know, bringing things in and out of the car, we've got animals jumping all over our equipment. That is something to consider, you know, especially, or if
absolutely.
you're doing any sort of, you know, farm animal like goats and repro and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the advantage with the butterfly as well, is that because it's all done on microchip, you effectively have your linear probe, your microconvex probe, everything all in one. So you just need to click a button on your phone and it changes. So it does a million different things. You can scan a horse tendon and then you can go and scan a dog heart. You can do that. It's just not quite, the image quality is not quite up to things that focus mainly on that. So but you can get a lot out of it nonetheless. So
that's so interesting. So I have a couple follow-up questions. If you're using this probe to do cystocentesis strictly, which one do you think would be the ideal?
If you were only doing that, the cystocentesis, and you wanted a probe that was going to last you a long time, it's really tricky. I think I would probably choose the Clarius over that, because you're not going to be that likely to drop it if you're just using it for cystocentesis, and you can pay that one you know upfront cost, and it will last you a long time. You know, it seems a bit of a shame to be paying a subscription and only saving cystocentesis images, you know, with the butterfly. So yeah, I think I'd probably choose a Clarius in that situation.
Okay, cool. And what about if you're doing a lot of repro work or working with large animal? Would you say the same?
Yeah. No, I would probably, so I don't do any large animal work, so it's hard for me to say how it manages with that work. But if I was doing a lot of variety of work, I would choose the butterfly, because that will be able to manage at very varying depths. So you can be looking at 1 centimeter to 20 centimeters and it can manage that. So yeah, I would choose a butterfly for that.
Cool. Okay. I think, okay, what is the other context? Like, so you have an animal that's got free fluid in the abdomen at home, and you're trying to see, does this animal have a splenic tumor? Does it have liver mets? Which ultrasound in the home would you pick for that?
So I would choose the Clarius, because the image quality is better. So you're going to see those details a bit more clearly.
Okay, cool. Okay, I think that gives me and probably our listeners like a little bit of direction. Yeah, that's super helpful. Yay. Okay, so now I'm curious to hear a little bit more general information. If you wouldn't mind sharing your top 3 tips for vets who are just getting started incorporating ultrasound into their mobile or house call practices, what would you tell them?
So I was thinking about, really think about what cases you want to use them for. So the cases I see most often where I think the other vet could have done this is in those persistent cystitis sign animals, so both cats and dogs, but where the cystitis hasn't resolved and unexpectedly hasn't resolved, that's where you want to put the ultrasound probe on it, because it's probably either got a stone or it's got a tumor. That's something you can really easily learn. It's really easily highlighted by the fluid that's in the bladder. So that's a really good starting point. So yeah, get good at scanning your bladder because that's a really good place to start. The other tip is to get some training. Get a good teacher. So obviously I teach online, so that's an option. Some people prefer being taught one-on-one, and there's lots of places you can get one-on-one training. The thing I always find with that is though that it's great for that day and then you forget it all. So it's nice to have that consistency. Plan to maybe get a few training days in if you're going to do it live like that. Tip number 3, I guess practice. That's like my motto if you do any of my training courses, that's what I finish, every webinar saying is practice, because that is the key. The more normal you see, the more you'll be able to see abnormal. So then it will jump out at you.
Love it. So I have learned about ultrasound and taken so many little trainings, and it went in one ear, out the other. I swear to God, I can't. You're absolutely right. Because I don't have an ultrasound machine, I'm not practicing, I'm not doing it. And I know intuitively that you're absolutely right. So if you're going to invest in an ultrasound machine, you also have to invest in learning how to use it, invest your time into practicing, finding a good mentor, a good teacher, someone that, resonates with you and you can learn from, potentially over the long term, because this is kind of like boundaries. It's an ongoing process, and kind of like veterinary medicine as a whole, it's an infinite amount to learn.
Absolutely. I'm still learning every day with
always. I also feel that way about folks who are just starting their mobile practices, or people who have invested a lot of time and money into equipment, into God knows what, but they're not investing in their education on how to sustainably run this practice so that it's profitable for them. Because there are techniques, there's so much to learn about business, and it's not really the kind of thing you can wing. You can't really wing it. Same with ultrasound. You can teach yourself on the fly, but you're going to miss a lot in the beginning. You're going to struggle. You're not going to monetize properly. You're not going to know how to use, the equipment you have or the investments you've made. And so I relate to that so much. I think it's really important to have a guide, a mentor. Consider ongoing education in your craft a part of the investment that you make.
100%.
Yeah. So I love the courses that you have. The minute I get an ultrasound machine, I will be at your door, banging down your door, taking those courses. And I did have a chance to look inside your course a little bit. You gave me a little courtesy peek, and it looks amazing. I'm so proud of you, and I know this is going to help everybody, and myself someday once I make the investment. Can you tell me a little bit more about your courses, your offerings, and what you'd like people to know about what's in there, all the goodies?
So I really focused on because ultrasound to me 10 years ago was a bit of an alien concept. It was the scary machine in the corner. And so I really wanted to make a course that would help me 10 years ago. So I really focused on what would help me. So I've got two main courses on teaching ultrasound. So the first one is called the basics. And in week 1, we go through the ultrasound machine, how it works, how to switch it on. And I get you to take pictures of your own machine, like I've said before, I've tried a lot of them, so I know how to work them. But even the ones that I haven't tried before, I can figure out for you what buttons on that machine from your pictures or from getting the manual from my suppliers that I know. So I can help you figure out how to get the most out of your machine. And we break it down to 5 really simple buttons. So I really try and simplify it. I'm quite a 3D thinker, so that's really important to me. So I give you access to a great 3D anatomy tool, so you can really focus in on what it is you're looking for and where it should be in the abdomen. And then also I have lots of interactive tools to help you demonstrate how the physics is working, because understanding the physics really does help you get the best image out of your machine. And then it gets juicier after that. We move on to some emergency scanning and scanning the liver and the spleen and gastrointestinal tract and the urinary tract and the reproductive tract. And then in the trickier bits, which is also a 4-week online course, we cover, like I say, the trickier bits. So we look at how to use Doppler, we look at lymph nodes, adrenal glands, pancreas, all those really tricky things to find in the abdomen, as well as going a little bit more in depth in the gastrointestinal tract. So finding out the different parts of the gastrointestinal tract as well. And there's also a little bit on the heart as well, just basic cardiac scanning. So you can get a little bit out of that as well. So yeah, I'm really proud of these courses. They are I put my life and soul into those over the last year and a half, and I get really good feedback from them. So I'm really proud of them. So yeah, you can find them at fovu.co.uk. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so proud of you too. Our journeys have been a little bit parallel. My creation of the House Call Vet Academy, and I think you started a little bit before I did, but I feel like a kinship, and I'm so proud of you when I see what you're putting out, and you have a lot to be proud of, and you're helping so many people. And I just wanted to thank you for what you're doing for our community and our industry. And I think we really need practical, simple, accessible stuff so that we can help our patients and not be so intimidated of the equipment we're expected to be operating every day, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing as well. I think, I don't know how it's worked in the US, but in the UK, it's often GP vets are being taught by specialist vets, and it's a different environment. But I'm a GP vet at heart, and I teach what you need to know in GP practice, what you need for your patients.
Beautiful. I love that. And I think because of where you're coming from, you're going to be able to speak to the general practitioner in a way that a specialist wouldn't be able to. So thank you again for that. So in summary, we are in the House Call Vet Cafe. So I would love to hear, what's your favorite tea, coffee, other beverage to drink? What's your comfort beverage?
So it's tea. I'm British. It's got to be a cup of tea.
Awesome.
So yeah, nothing too fancy, just an English breakfast tea. No milk, no sugar, just tea.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cup of tea.
Yeah.
All right, Camilla, thank you so much for your time and your expertise, and your free gift, the little ebook that you put together. Again, all of the links will be down in the show notes, and please feel free to send me a DM or reach out to Camilla if you have questions, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as the House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for house call vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.